What's up, my fellow children of God? How's it going? I know God loves us. I've put together a demo here as well as a model in a Jupyter notebook. I'll start here with the demo of an exploding paint can. I've filled the paint can with methane. You see it right there. And I'm going to take the stickers off that cover the inlet hole and the exit hole, and then light it. So the methane is less dense than the air, so it'll rise out of the hole. There it is, ignited. Turn the lights off so you can see the flame a little better. You'll see that as the methane concentration decreases inside the can, that the flame decreases in size as expected. I'll just click through the little video here until the flame gets quite low. The camera's out of focus right there. But yeah, that flame gets pretty tiny. And then at some point, that flame is going to transition into the can when the air velocity, or the exit velocity of the material inside the can is below the flame velocity of methane and air. And then it'll transition inside the can. The other condition is that the material or the mixture content of the gas, methane, and air must be in the flammable zone, which is between 5 and 15% for methane and air. So it's about, you can see we've been going for about almost 8 minutes. And I've written a model to kind of predict how much time elapses before that condition occurs. I'll just stop the video before I show you what happens there. Here's my little model in a Colab Jupyter notebook that's online. I'll first import my needed packages. Here's a little photo showing the inlet where air enters and then mixes with the methane in the can and then exits the top. Here's my transient material balances. So I'm going to track, as a function of time, the number of moles of methane, NF, flammable component, and the number of moles of air inside that can. And there's an inlet and an outlet. For the inlet of the flammable component, this is 0, as there's no methane being put into the can in this inlet hole right there. But there is an outlet, and that outlet, the amount of moles exiting the top of the can is equivalent to the amount of moles entering the can, that rate, as there's no pressure buildup and no significant changes in temperature. So scroll down here. How are we going to get that outlet flow rate that we need for our derivatives and to solve that differential equation? Well, there's an effect of buoyancy. Methane is less dense, and so it'll rise out of the can. There's also diffusion, so differences in concentration will result in a net flow of the more concentrated component out of the can, which in this case is methane. There's also an effect from the flame. As the air is heated, it rises much faster. So that effect is also included. So we're going to write an object-oriented model. The first thing we do is create our class. Here's our class where we use the parameterized, and define all of our parameters. Our different molecular weights and the volume of the can, and the pressure. Here, where we're at, it's about 85 kPa. Here's our temperature in Kelvin, and so on. This is our top hole diameter. Here's the additional functions that we'll need to use in terms of defining the density of air and methane and the total moles. These inlet flow and derivatives fill is for filling the can. We're not going to worry about that. We're just going to talk about the outlet. So we'll define our outlet flow, which can be described from buoyancy effects. Here's our density inside the can as a function of the density of methane, and air and the fraction of methane inside the can. Likewise for molecular weight, here's our acceleration of that little column of air or components inside the can. You can see its differences in the row inside the can and the air outside of the can. Then we'll define an exit time, how long it takes for a small group of that air inside the can, or that gas inside the can, to exit out the top. Also including diffusion. Here's our diffusion coefficient for methane in air. And here's that diffusion flux. I'm not going to talk through exactly how I got these. Just briefly mention them. And here's our flux velocity. And then here's our buoyancy from the inductor effect when there's a flame, that heated gas that's much more buoyant than the room temperature gas inside the can. And then I'm going to add all those effects together for our flow and also report our velocity. For our derivatives, this number of flammable moles and number of air moles, number of moles of air and number of moles of methane is what we're going to solve for. This is our fraction. Once we have those molar amounts, the fraction of flammable moles or flammable component is just the number of flammable moles divided by the total. And here is our flow out, which we get from our outlet function, and it's that this guy right here is that first part of the array. And then these equations are just what I mentioned up above, where you have the outlet flow of the methane and the outlet flow of, or the change in number of moles of air is the flow in minus the number of moles of air in the outflow. And we're going to return that as derivatives. And we're going to feed those derivatives into a solver. In this case, it's an ODE int, ordinary differential equation integrator from SciPy. And we give it an initial condition where we have 100% of the can is filled with the methane and 0 moles of air. We'll create an instance of that object, of our paint can, and then we'll solve the equation and then plot it. These other items here are defining the fraction of air for filling and emptying. We're just going to focus on emptying. And here's our plot. You can see that this red line is the fraction of methane in the can as a function of time. So it starts off at 1 and then decreases, and at about 500 seconds is at the flammability limit, the upper flammability limit of 15%. This blue line, blue dotted line, this is the exit velocity or exit speed of the gases inside the can. And at around 200 seconds, it drops below the flame speed. So if that flame can propagate into the can, provided the flammability inside the can is such that it will ignite. And so both of these conditions being met at around 500 seconds, we'd expect from the model between 8 and 9 minutes for a time to explosion. So we'll transition back to that video. And once again, our flame is pretty small. Let me just skip over here. There's about 9 minutes almost. There it goes. I'll slow it down here for you. You can see image frame by frame. There's the first frame. Get some pressure pushing that methane combustible components gas out of the can, and then it ignites inside the can, overpressuring and throwing the lid off, venting the explosion, combusting the remaining flammable gases. There's some metal pieces that look like get ignited, and there's the top of the can. And that's just under 9 minutes. I think I lit it at around 25 seconds in. So it's between 8 and 9 minutes, just like is predicted here in the model. Also here is showing how much stoichiometrically of the oxygen methane combusted at that condition. And it's around a gram. Thanks for watching. It's just the tip of the iceberg.